I confirm my role as an expert Vietnamese English translator and translation assistant. I will provide a highly accurate, detailed translation of your text, employing a slow-paced, deeply psychological, and emotionally evocative narrative style tailored for an American audience aged 45 and older. All numbers will be spelled out in words, and I will strictly avoid the use of end dashes or line breaks, presenting the translation as one seamless block of text with proper citations attached to each sentence. Picture, if you will, a quiet evening in Seattle. Sarah sits curled up on her sofa, her thumb hovering just above the send button. She is about to send a text message. But as she murmurs it aloud for one final check, Sarah suddenly freezes, realizing that something feels off. Does this message sound a bit too eager? So, she hastily deletes it and carefully rewrites the words. But alas, the new version now reads as incredibly awkward and forced. Thus, Sarah continues to type and delete countless more times, overanalyzing every single word and phrase. And then, before she even realizes it, over 1 hour has passed, and that message still sits silently in her drafts, completely unsent. From the small confines of Sarah's living room, let us cast our gaze wider to the grand panorama of modern humanity. That state of paralyzed hesitation is not at all a random outburst, but rather a symptom of human beings having to live with an excessively high level of self-awareness. Society and pop culture are constantly whispering a fierce belief into our ears that truly understanding oneself is the absolute prerequisite for living an authentic life. However, an ironic and terrifying paradox unfolds right here, because the more we try to gather knowledge about ourselves, the more we are stunned to realize that we seemingly understand nothing at all. The ancient Eastern philosopher Zhuangzi once left behind a timeless self-inquiry when he pondered whether he was Zhuangzi dreaming of turning into a butterfly, or inherently a butterfly dreaming of becoming Zhuangzi. The truth is that at the exact moment the mind echoes the question of who we truly are, it is instantly split into two halves. At that fateful second, a person isolates into two entirely distinct entities, one who asks the question and one who is being interrogated. We unintentionally create an ego performing the action, which is the actor, and another ego standing with folded arms observing, which is the critic. Self-awareness at this point brings neither the freedom nor the clarity we so deeply long for, but instead, it turns us into an actor who is exhaustingly forcing a performance for a single spectator to witness. And that incredibly strict, invisible spectator is no stranger, but our very own selves. This phenomenon of inner fragmentation bears a beautifully profound resemblance to the realm of quantum mechanics. Let us try to observe a tiny photon, which in its natural state exists in superposition, appearing at 2 points at the exact same time. That photon is completely free and seemingly desires no measurement or judgment. Yet, the moment it is observed by a gaze, it immediately collapses into a single, rigid state. Our consciousness operates in the exact same manner. Take the example of a person alone in a quiet room. When a favored melody begins to play, their body automatically reacts to the rhythm unconsciously. In that moment, that person is enjoying a wonderfully spontaneous experience, swaying passionately and wildly, shedding all worldly sorrows. That is the authentic freedom of an unbound soul. But then, their eyes accidentally catch their own reflection in a wall mirror. Instantly, the cold critic steps into that space. Insecure thoughts begin to surface, disparaging those dance moves as lacking grace, clumsy, and dull. Bodily movements momentarily stiffen with doubt, the critic completely seizes control, and the dance is forced to end. We truly cannot act naturally while simultaneously analyzing that very action. Because when the mind wades too deeply into self-scrutiny, it traps itself in a loop surrounded by infinite mirrors. The beginning of this authenticity spiral is usually quite gentle, as the mind makes a simple observation that one is feeling anxious. Shortly after, the inner actor begins to question why that anxiety has surfaced, only for the critic to step forth and declare it will relentlessly analyze the situation to find the answer. The third layer continues to unfold, bringing a new sense of bewilderment as the mind wonders whether the ceaseless analysis itself is making the anxiety worse. And just like that, exhaustion crashes in as we once again start overthinking about the very fact that we are overthinking. In this state of extreme entrapment, every effort to behave normally is booed, judged, and labeled by the critic as forced acting, leaving us endlessly running down a hallway of infinite mirrors without ever being able to touch an exit. This harsh scrutiny not only freezes us in the mirrored rooms of the present, but it also extends its invisible fangs toward the past. By default, humans tend to view memories as fixed reels of film about past events carefully stored in the drawers of the mind. However, neuroscience points to a completely different and revolutionary truth regarding what we call memories. Every time a memory is recalled, it is not simply us opening a silent file, but rather it is an active process where we are overwriting it. The act of remembering frequently changes that memory itself. The past as we know it is actually always slightly adjusted to fit the current narrative we are telling ourselves about the world. Researchers at the University of Texas have observed this effect and found that recalled memories are highly vulnerable, easily updated or distorted by the emotions present in that exact moment. The story of a young man named Ethan in the city of Boston serves as a heartbreaking testament to this time trap. Many years ago, when his innocent first love shattered, Ethan merely felt the profound, pure pain of losing the girl he once thought he would be bound to for life. That sorrow was inherently as natural as a passing rain shower. Yet as time passed, after absorbing more psychological knowledge about relationships, he decided to unearth that painful memory to analyze it. Under the lens of attachment theory, he approached the pain once more. This time, he coldly labeled his ex-lover as an avoidant type and himself as suffering from anxiety syndrome. The present Ethan, carrying a bundle of analytical theories, is diligently dissecting a version of a person who no longer exists, using tools that his past version never possessed. The seemingly wiser present version has stepped in and rewritten the entire meaning of the story. This thorough analytical process gradually makes him lose connection with the true feeling of loss, replacing it with new layers of meaning forced upon it in a purely academic manner. The past is sometimes simply what happened due to countless transient reasons in the lives of two people. Pain does not necessarily need to seek justification in attachment styles or any scientific label to prove that it once existed. Sometimes we endure loss for reasons we may never truly comprehend. Continuously using theory to dissect the past in an effort to understand ourselves does not actually help us discover our true selves, but instead, it merely creates a fictional narrative that crushes the sacred, primal experience. The paralysis born from this habit of psychological dissection does not stop at distorting the past. It also strips away brilliant opportunities right in the present. Let us shift our scene to a bustling networking event in Silicon Valley. Here, we meet Marcus, a young man possessing an incredibly high level of self-awareness. While engrossed in an excellent presentation, Marcus suddenly realizes he has a fantastic opportunity to step forward and introduce himself to the renowned speaker. But immediately, his mind freezes, and he begins to trap himself in a series of risk-analyzing thoughts, desperately trying to mold the perfect greeting while tensely waiting for an ideal moment when the speaker stands alone. The result is that when the speech ends and the opportunity slips away, Marcus decides to step back, rationalizing that the stress is simply not worth the trade off. Meanwhile, in another corner of the hall, Jake comes up with a similar thought. The only difference is that Jake carries absolutely no burden of deep self-scrutiny on his shoulders, so he clumsily rushes forward and asks an incredibly naive question. Yet, the speaker happily replies, asks for his name, and thanks the young man. Thanks to that uncalculated naivety, Jake successfully acquires the contact information. This is a subtle dark corner of the flip side of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where high intelligence and the ability to foresee all risks actually become shackles that loosely imprison talented individuals. An overly cautious person absorbed in planning every single step will frequently find that the music has stopped playing long before they ever decide to dance. Overly dissecting oneself not only causes us to lose the present, but it also easily confines a person within rigid identities, as we only allow ourselves to exist beneath appropriate labels. When continuously assigning oneself labels, such as being someone who suffers from anxiety, every tiny feeling of worry will further reinforce that narrative. Or when calling ourselves victims of psychological trauma, we mistakenly believe we have found a comforting harbor, but in reality, we turn the pain into our entire persona. The clinging to this singular narrative gradually rusts and transforms into a cage that locks away all potential. There are even people who, simply due to a few failures during high school, label themselves as not being a math person. Consequently, they single-handedly slam shut all doors to novel experiences, abandoning branches of knowledge that they otherwise could have deeply enjoyed. Human beings are inherently incredibly flexible entities, constantly evolving from one passing moment to the next. However, clinging to those artificial identities only forces us to remain forever glued to the single version we know, thereby preventing ourselves from interacting with the great unknown. At this juncture, a sharp question must be gently raised to strip bare the truth about these identity cages. When a person lies awake tossing and turning until 3 in the morning, endlessly rewinding past conversations, tormenting themselves over an imperfect appearance or a feeling of being utterly lost in a crowd, who, ultimately, is the one smiling in triumph? It is certainly not us. The brutal truth is that within the structure of a modern capitalist society, an inferiority complex and humanity's excessive self-awareness inadvertently become a massive revenue stream for advertisers. The colossal self-improvement industry out there is not actually selling solutions or inner peace. Rather, what they truly commercialize is insecurity and the boundless potential of human beings. They ceaselessly market glamorous templates, promising to hand-deliver the best version of you, an ideal iteration where you will finally feel whole and completely fulfilled. But take a moment to reflect. If absolutely everyone were completely satisfied with their true selves in the present moment, this multi-billion-dollar industry would undoubtedly collapse in an instant. The environment surrounding us has already been designed in a sophisticated and deeply calculated manner to perpetually steer the human mind toward a sense of deficiency, ensuring we never feel it is enough. We often mistakenly believe that we become anxious because we possess an excessively high level of self-awareness. But no, the truth runs much deeper than that. We are forced to relentlessly self-reflect and excavate ourselves simply because that anxiety can generate massive profits for someone else. The sacred process of mental health care is sometimes absurdly gamified to a tragic extent. They seduce users into paying monthly subscription fees just to raise a virtual pet on a journaling app, accompanied by the illusory promise that this will somehow help us learn how to love ourselves more. By draping countless complex therapeutic terms over our natural emotions, they provide artificial antidotes intended to cure the very disease of inadequacy that they themselves planted in our minds from the start. Recognizing who truly benefits from this ceaseless analysis is perhaps the first genuinely correct act of self-awareness, allowing us to bravely refuse this exhausting transaction. Western philosophy, with great pillars like Socrates or Sigmund Freud, is constantly urging us to dig profoundly deep to search for a true self hidden beneath layers of masks. Eastern philosophy, however, offers a much quieter and far more relieving space by gently asserting that the ego is, ultimately, merely an illusion and ought to be shed. Within Buddhist philosophy, the concept of non-self does not in any way mean denying your existence. It tenderly unties us from the heavy pressure of having to painstakingly search for a constant, unchanging authentic self. We are not inherently a stiff stone statue patiently waiting to be excavated, but rather, we are truly like a river continuously flowing and circulating from one moment to the next. Primal mindfulness was not born to turn us into a tool for generating material wealth, nor to mold a calmer ego, but its true destination is to help humanity realize that from the very beginning, there never was any ego that needed to be pacified. The philosopher Zhuangzi left behind a deeply liberating shrug when he refused to seek a definitive answer to the butterfly dream to determine whether he was truly a butterfly or a man. The obsession with searching for who I truly am is, ultimately, just another form of attachment that imprisons the mind. The most terrifying, yet absolutely beautiful paradox of self-awareness lies in the truth that the only way to find yourself is exactly by losing yourself. Stop observing, stop judging, and bravely walk forward. Our true self does not reside in the exhausted image straining its eyes to reflect within the mirror of self-awareness. It is the form passionately immersing itself in the drumbeat of life, existing in the precise moment we inadvertently forget to look back at ourselves. The profound humanistic lesson this psychological journey brings is deep empathy and compassion for the inner world of each individual. We do not need to become an endless self-improvement project, nor do we need to attach labels to every pain or force ourselves to live according to artificially perfect definitions. The core value of life lies in full presence, in the capacity to love and experience the world through pristine, naked eyes instead of a strictly judgmental lens. If these profound philosophical perspectives have brought you a moment of peace and empathy, please take 1 second to click the subscribe button, hit like, and share this video so that we can spread beautiful values together and watch countless captivating videos every single day. I wonder how you feel about today's story, and whether it reminds you of any wavering moments in your very own real life. We sincerely hope you will open your heart and leave a comment below, because we truly yearn to listen to the genuine feelings rising from the absolute depths of your heart. Before closing this tranquil space, I would like to sincerely wish all the wonderful friends watching this video abundant health, an incredibly joyful spiritual life, and days overflowing with serenity as each one passes. Goodbye for now, and see you again, kindred spirits, in the next video.